Hold it there but stay with us, Dan Hannan. Speaking of referendums, as we have been, Danish voters have rejected a government proposal for deeper ties with the European Union on home affairs and justice issues. And our correspondent, Gavin Lee, is in Copenhagen. So, Gavin, what's your take on what this result means for Denmark?
Well, two things struck me about the referendum. Firstly, just how confusing so many voters found the question. In fact, one voter came out of the polling station yesterday and said it's the most baffling referendum question in the history of the EU. And secondly, I think how many voters decided to vote with their hearts, their gut instinct, to say, do they want to embrace more EU or do they want to step back away from it? The government believes actually it's the external crises that really factored into this. So it's the Paris attacks, the threat of the terror on the borders, the migrant crisis as well, that played into people's feeling of Euroscepticism. And I think as well, going back to that question, it was deeply complex. Lots of analysts were saying that you either say yes, which meant you embrace a more flexible system when it comes to some technical areas of law, home affairs and justice, a bit like the British system, or they say no, and Denmark continues it opt-out it negotiated 20 years ago, and EU affairs to law and justice and cybercrime, terror, sharing of a police database, for example, called Europol. Well, Denmark risks being dropped from this. And I'll give you an example. This is an example of both the yes and no campaign. The posters you see everywhere in Copenhagen. This is the yes campaign the government was showing. This is a female Danish police officer. It's talking about the lack of Europol if Denmark says no. And this is Elsinore Castle, made famous by Shakespeare's Hamlet. People said, what did it really mean? But this is the striking difference. This is the no campaign. More EU, no thanks. And that's what won it in the day. And I spoke to the Prime Minister yesterday, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, and I said to him, how much of a blow did he feel this was for Denmark?
The Danes refused to take a step forward, you could say, and obviously I would like to have seen another outcome. It is still my feeling that the Danes are in favor of a strong cross-border cooperation between the Danish police and police in other European countries, and that was actually the main question. The reason why the Danes refused to choose what we have proposed is probably that there is this feeling of uncertainty, also given the fact that Europe is right now faced with other major problems, which we haven't really solved, the refugees crisis, etc.
Right, well, let's sort of think about the British referendum and what they've been saying about that in Denmark. Some of the Danish politicians have been drawing parallels with the upcoming British referendum.
Yeah, particularly the Eurosceptic anti-immigration party, the Danish People's Party, and its leader, Christian Dale, who was saying that he believes that sovereignty is at stake for both countries. He said that the Danes are like the British in many ways, that the British will watch this and realise that there are factors, external issues, the migrant crisis, for example, that can lead people to say, well, hang on a minute, gut instinct comes into this. And for Britain, it's an issue about how simple people find the question when it comes to the referendum in the months or potentially within the next 2 years.
Gavin Lee there in Copenhagen, thank you very much. Let's talk about some of